So, page 3, 4, 5, and 6 are part of our legal documents master preparation form. There's a couple pages missing. I just printed what we're going to talk about today. But this is going to be familiar to you because this is the actual form we use as staff for Montgomery Associates. Okay? So what I'd like to do is walk through the form with you and just kind of talk about the form fields and things like that. Then I will have you guys pair up and actually ask each other the questions. For purposes of our illustration today, we're not going to actually fill out forms with our personalized data because we're recording, and I just dates of birth, addresses, people who you're going to name as agents. That's a little too personal, I think, for my class related stuff. So I'm going to have you do mock information. Just give each other information to fill in the blanks, okay? And then you'll take that data from your form and you'll transfer it onto the real form. Again, it's going to be mock data, so it's not going to be a real valid form. But if you were to help a friend, then now you've practiced and you know how to fill it out, so you can help a friend or a family member. Okay?
So I'm doing this.
Yep.
Okay.
And again, we're going to mock do it. You'll just use mock names and mock information. You won't use real dates of birth, real addresses, things like that. Okay? All right, ma'am.
Yep.
Stay focused.
Oh, I'm sorry. You said give the dog a snack.
You just give it to him. You don't have to actually make him sit pretty.
But he wants to.
No, he's scared. Jack, will lay down.
He wants to start now?
No, I gotta go through
Oh,
the form first.
Sorry.
I want to explain what the form is, what the fields are, so that
Okay.
you guys know what information you're actually gathering from our clients.
Okay.
Okay? So the top of the form has a date. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. You're going to put the date that you're filling out the form with the customer. The referred by is going to be who referred that customer to us. Now, generally, we ask this during the potential call, but if that potential call just turns into a legal docs, hey, I'm calling because I want a financial power of attorney, then you're going to put, well, how did you hear about us? And you'll put that person's name and the company name in there. The principal, up here it says caller's name, if not principal. So principal is going to be the person that the document is being prepared for, okay? So if the caller is not the principal, you're going to put their information there, their phone number, and their email address, because we want to have a way to reach out and contact people, okay? If the caller is the principal, you can just put C below, right? You just write C below. So if you guys want to just write C below, put in today's date, and you just put in there that you were referred by Carol. Just so we can kind of have a sample form there. And then one of the strategies or the ideals that we use in our firm is that you leave no space blank. Okay, so if you have a C below and it's going to be C below for everything, either draw an arrow through the next two, do a data repeat, ditto mark thing, or write C below in every single space. We don't want to leave anything blank, because if you leave it blank, how do we know if you just missed it or if we were waiting on data? So one of the things that I'll do is I'm going to ask a question to my client, and let's say they don't have an answer for me. So how do I notate that I'm waiting for data? You put a P with a circle around it. And I usually do it off to the right-hand side here so that all the P's line up here so I know what I'm looking for. Because that way, if I'm writing an email back to them and I say, okay, we had our data collection appointment today, and you have homework. Your homework is, I need A, B, C, D, E, right? So the P's help cue me back to all the pieces of information that are missing. Okay? So use a P. The first thing that you're going to do is you're going to review the important notice with every customer that's hiring us. And, Callista, why? Why do we need to review the important notice? Do you know? Do you have the background knowledge for that?
I assumed it was because some people think you're a lawyer, and I just was like, well, she's not, so.
Yeah. So two purposes. One is exactly that. People don't always know that they're calling a certified legal document preparer firm. Sometimes they think that I'm an attorney because people will reference me as an attorney all the time. So the first thing is to make sure people know that. Secondly, it's required.
It's required.
It's required. So anytime I'm preparing documents for people, I have to let them know that I'm not an attorney, I'm not employed by an attorney, they're not getting represented by an attorney. That's not what this meeting is for. So your job is not only to collect the data at the top, but also to review this section here with them. And why do I have that first, right after we get their name, address, or name, email, and phone number?
Because we don't want a lawyer instead.
Exactly.
You know that right off the bat.
Exactly. So if they don't want me, that's okay. Just go see an attorney. That'll be all right with us. So you're going to literally review this verbatim. On the acknowledged area there, you're not necessarily going to fill out all that data yet, because we're going to have them actually sign this, but you would make a note, reviewed on this date or something like that, some sort of a notation, and you could put acknowledge this day, you know, the 27th of April 2018 by the customer verbally, you know, you might put verbally on there, and then they can sign it later when they come in. And honestly, we don't usually have them sign this section of the form anymore. We're now having our legal documents fee agreement, so we'll have them sign that instead, which actually has this whole thing right in our agreement. But we need to know that my staff is actually following the protocol to make sure that we're letting people know right up front we're not a law firm, okay? The next question there that says all text planning, Montgomery Associates use only in the blue ink there. So the first question is, are there any legal issues pending right now, guardianships, conservatorships, etc.? So it's a yes or no question, and they're going to need to answer that for you. If they say yes, there are legal issues pending, they have a guardianship, are we going to be able to prepare legal documents for them?
No.
Why?
Because they're not capable.
Right, somebody is saying they're not capable of managing their own stuff, so if that person is calling me and asking me to prepare a document for them, I can't really do that. I mean, I can prep it for them, they can pay for it, but is it going to do them any good? No, it's not going to do them any good. Alright, the next question is important notice and all sections of form reviewed. So that's really up to this point, have you reviewed the important notice and all the sections? Is that a yes or a no? So what should it always be?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, and then legal documents fee agreement signed. Would you, on a telephone call, have that signed already? No. But what would you put right next to it?
Pending.
You put a P and circle it. And that's because you're going to need to attach that to the email to remind them they need to review that, because that's going to have to be signed when they do their signing appointment. Is it a TC, telephone call, or FF, face-to-face? So if somebody comes into our office, which if we do end up having our insurance agency, we'll have an office, people might just pop in and say, hey, I saw you do legal documents, let me get a power of attorney today. Woohoo, we sold an extra power of attorney. But it'll now be a face-to-face, because you're going to sit down with them and you're going to collect the data in person, okay? But most of them are going to be TC, telephone call, okay? So you'll put your signature and the date that you did the form, and then the next line is for me. Did I call to confirm the prep information, and then I'm going to sign and date it as well, okay? The next section is the principal's information. Who is the principal again? To whom are we referring?
The person whose documents we prepare.
That's right, yeah, the person who's going to be signing. They're the person that's wanting their documents done. Name is pretty self-explanatory. It's really, really important that you ask the name and you spell it back to them, okay? Confirm spellings, because Susie can be spelled multiple ways, Tracy can be spelled multiple ways, George can be spelled multiple ways, Mary Lou can be spelled multiple ways. Everybody has a different way that they do their name. Yes, there's no rhyme or reason. Maybe Al is about the only one. Maybe. Al, but it's usually short for Albert, so you probably can't do that either. And then aliases, any other names that they're known by, right? And why do we need that?
They might have changed their name at some point.
Or
Yeah.
if they go by a nickname, and then we call that, but you still need their legal name for the actual document.
Yeah.
So.
Probably more so than anything, it's going to be other names they might have been known by, or other names that might be on their documents. So for example, the clients that came in today, she has some stock in her previous married name. So we want to make sure we're addressing that so that the person has authority over anything that her and her maiden name, her and her previous married name, and her and her current married name, she might have something owned in all those names. Okay? So aliases. Are they an individual or married couple? What's their date of birth? Are they a citizen, male or female, the county, and their address, email, and phone number. So the documents themselves have all this data on there except for the email address. But again, we need contact information for our customers so that we can keep in communication with them. Okay, so what if the law changed and we needed to encourage them to update their documents? We need a way to call them. But you're going to be filling this out, and again, please make sure that you're confirming spelling, right? Because they might say you live on Moon Ridge Drive, and it might be Moon Ridge all one word, or it might be Moon and then the word Ridge and then the word Drive. So Moon Ridge Drive, and they're all capitalized, right? Okay, so we need to know that.
I have a question.
Yes.
Have you ever had any intersex people as clients?
Like other than male female couples,
No, like what?
like somebody who doesn't identify as male or female.
No, who is born like with some people are born with
I have had one client, and they dictated to me what they wanted, what gender they wanted put on there. So yeah.
they got like
It's their identifying gender,
Mhm.
but yeah.
Yeah, right now the software is only set up to do male or female. There's no additional choices, so those are the choices. And if they don't want gender on there, I'm sure they would tell me, and I would just take it off. Yeah, it's a good question.
What? Your lips usually identify as homosexual. I know, some people do.
Yeah.
I just wondered.
All right, so let's flip to the next page. Again, you're going to fill that out later when you work together on that. I just want to kind of go through some information with you so we make sure we understand what the questions are. First question up there is P1. What do I mean when I say P1?
Principal one?
Principal one. Now we do have a document that has space for a P2. Again, I didn't save all that data in here, but we're just doing it for one person. But if we were doing a married couple case, we might have to ask questions of both of the couple, right? So P1 is always referencing the first person we're talking about, and P2 is always the second person we're referencing. P1 is just to keep it simple, and I want to write principal 5,000 times. Okay. So the first questions here are kind of yes or no on whether or not they want those documents. The first one is, do they want a financial power of attorney? Do they want a healthcare power of attorney? Do they want a HIPAA waiver, mental health care power of attorney, advanced directive registry form, living will, final disposition, last will and testament, and trust? And of course, you know, when I go through training, I always find things, I'm like, ooh, I should probably fix that or move that, so that it makes more sense. But really, the first line of yes or no's are really for the document. Are they going to want those specific documents? Okay? So on the financial power of attorney, you'll notice there that there are some sub-questions for the financial power of attorney. One of them is there at least one witness unrelated to the principal and not Carol, and a notary available for the signing? Why do I ask that?
Because like you said earlier, we have to make sure that the person who's witnessing is not a party to the document in any way, as well as the fact that you can't witness a document you approve.
Right. And then also, because we know we need a witness and a notary for a financial power of attorney, right? That's the signing requirement, so we need to make sure we have the right number of people there. The second thing is the customer providing the witness? If the customer is providing the witness, if we can get the witness's name, that will be helpful, just because we can pre-fill our forms out. And then third is the firm providing the witness, and then who's going to be going to that appointment, okay? So it's going to be important for you guys, especially if you guys start taking these kinds of phone calls, that you're thinking about this information. So if somebody calls and says, I want a financial power of attorney, and I want to do it on a Tuesday, it's going to be really important. Do we have a witness and a notary available that day? Because you guys are not here, right? Okay. And you have to look at George's schedule. Does he have availability, or is he already in appointments all day long? Might not happen. They might have to bring their own witness. Also, we do home visits. So a customer might say, oh, I'll just ask my neighbor to come, and that will save us from having to bring a witness with us, okay? Second one is the healthcare power of attorney. A couple of things that are going to be asked on the healthcare power of attorney is whether or not somebody has a DNR and whether or not they want to be buried or cremated. So I've put them there. We're going to ask them again later, but that's going to be on that form, so I want to kind of have some answers to those questions there. The standalone HIPAA waiver. Remember, the medical power of attorney, healthcare power of attorney is only valid when you lack capacity. So, most of them, your healthcare power of attorney can't really talk to your doctor or get information from them because you're competent. So the HIPAA waiver gives them the ability to look at your personally identifiable information and your medical records. Okay, that's what you're giving them permission. Some people want that standalone HIPAA waiver and some do not. Okay, so we ask them that question. We've already talked about the Advanced Directive Registry, so this is just, are they going to want that form or not? That way I know to check that box so it will print it. Living will is again the advanced directives, and then we just throw this form in. It's not necessarily something that we sell separately per se, and that is the final disposition instructions. So if they want that form to state whether or not they want to be buried or cremated, then you would say yes, they want that form, and then we can ask them more details about that. So everything, if you see here, if there's some additional question or information on the form, there's usually some prompts here to remind you to ask those questions up front. And that's just so we can make the forms very specific to their situation. So we left off at final disposition, I believe. George is on the wrong page. Final disposition. And then whether or not somebody has a burial and cremation plan in place yet, if they're having a last will and testament, or a trust. So the last will and testament, there's some additional questions there, just like up in the financial power of attorney. And then the trust, there's some additional questions there, just like in the financial power of attorney. And again, to prompt you to make sure we have the right number of witnesses and a notary available for the signing. Okay? I think most of those are self-explanatory. We are going to be going through a separate form, so we'll go into that in more detail. But just as in terms of being an employee, it's important for you to understand. And again, our motto is leave nothing unmarked. So no space should be blank and nothing should be unmarked. So everything should be addressed. If it's not applicable, you put not applicable. If we're not doing it, put no. Slash through things if it's not applicable. So if it's no to last will and testament, put a slash mark through all the sub-questions. Okay? Just so that we're making sure we're addressing everything. And then down at the bottom of the form are some additional questions relating to identity and whether or not people are going to pick up or have their documents mailed to them. So first one is, does P1 have current ID to prove identity for notarization? Why is that important? Because a notary has to verify identity. So you'll check yes or no on those. Does the witness have current ID? Okay, so we'll need to know that. And then of course, are they going to pick up their documents, or are they going to be mailed? If they're going to be mailed, collect the address. Where do we want them to be mailed to? Okay? All right. So we're going to skip over the financial power of attorney related questions, since the document we're going to be focusing on today is the medical power of attorney. So flip to page 6 for me. And again, I'm just going to quickly go through the material here, and then I will have you guys pair up, collect data from each other. Okay? So on the medical power of attorney section, it's really just the top section here. There's the first batch of white area is medical power of attorney, the second batch of white area is mental health care power of attorney, and the bottom section is living will. For purposes of our illustration today, we're just going to do medical power of attorney. So on here, the first thing is list the name of the person or persons you want to manage your medical care, make medical decisions, and look at your medical records while you're alive, but can't do it yourself. So if people don't know what a medical power of attorney is or why they're naming people, there's a little prompt there for you to be able to use that. If they're matching the information on their financial power of attorney, you can check the little box, same as. If they're not matching that, then you can go ahead and write the new data in here. Use the first, so each little section is numbered 1, 2, and 3. So the first one is the person in first position, second one, number 2 is the second person, number 3 is the third person if they name a third person. Okay? So the data you're going to be collecting is who's going to be the agent for that person when they no longer can make medical decisions for themselves. We need their name. And what's something that we're going to do when we ask the name?
You go over it, right?
Okay. You're going to clarify the spelling.
Confirm the spelling.
Yep, confirm the spelling, because we're not going to presume we know how to spell everybody's name on earth. Okay? What's their relationship to the person, to the P1, to the principal? What's their address, city, state, zip, phone number, and email? Okay? And again, confirm the data. Then, should the persons named above be co-agents or one right after the other? right? What does co-agents mean?
Like they all have to make the decision, like together, and they have to sign off. Each of them has to sign off on the decision.
Well, we haven't answered that question yet. So co-agents just means that you're naming two people or more than one person, so 2, 3, 4, in that first position. So for example, you might name your mom and your dad in first position. You don't necessarily need to name your dad and then your mom, because we're married, you don't have to pick between us. Either one of us can make decisions for you. So that would be an example, okay?
So do co-agents have to sign off?
That's a great question. What's the next question on the form?
Yeah.
Must all co-agents sign to take action?
You can make that.
That's correct. So you're going to ask the customer, do you want them to be one together as co-agents or one right after the other? And then do they have to all sign off at the same time? So that would be an example of, earlier I said I had a person who named 4 people, right? But all 4 of their kids lived in different states. So would it be feasible to have 4 kids in different states all have to come in and make a medical decision for somebody? It wouldn't be feasible. So in that situation, they might want to say, no, any one of them can make that decision, okay? The next area is their autopsy choices. Autopsy is not required, but if they ask if you want to do an autopsy, you're going to ask them, do you want to say, yes, I'll take an autopsy, no, I don't want one, or let my agent decide? Okay, so those choices. Same thing with organ donation. Are you going to be an organ donor or not? Or just let somebody else make that decision. If they say yes, there are some sub-questions that go along with yes. Is it going to be any needed organs or parts, or only specific parts? And then for transplant and therapeutic purposes only, or for any authorized purpose. So you kind of go left to right on these questions here. I didn't do the or in the middle of that, but just know it's any needed organ or parts, or specific parts. And then the next question is transplant and therapeutic purposes only, or any authorized purpose. And then the next question is, have they already signed a consent with the company? And if they have, let's list that name, that company. Or if they have a specific company or organization in mind, they can stipulate that. Okay? So,
You hit it.
oh, scared myself. That's going to be great on the video. Okay, so what I would like you guys to do is pair up, and you're going to fill out page 1 and page 2. Again, we're only doing medical power of attorney, so the answers to all the other forms are going to be no. Okay, just as a little side note there. But you're going to ask each other all the questions, and again, we're going to use mock information. So don't actually use your real date of birth, your real name, your real address. Just make stuff up as you're going along. Mary Lou, you'll be practicing your customer service skills because you're going to be talking to George or whoever he wants to be for this example. And then George, you will be using your customer service skills to collect information from them. Okay? So let's take 5 minutes and we'll work on that. Go. Go.
I'll go first. You go first. Okay. All right. What is your name?
Give a real name, like give a name that could be real, like John Smith,
His name's
James
John
Doe. John Doe. John Doe Joker.
Okay. My name is Jose Jimenez.
All right.
How do you spell that?
How do you spell that?
Oh, that one backfired on you right then.
Yeah,
J-O-S-E.
And does the E have an accent?
J-A-M-E-S.
Jose James. You switched the name.
Jimenez. Very interesting spelling there.
Yeah. Okay.
No, just go ahead and let her work her form first, and then we'll work yours.
Okay. And do you have any other aliases, like previous names, maiden names that you've used in the past?
Joe.
Joe. Is that J-O-E?
Yes.
Joe James. Or Joe something else.
Joe. Joe.
No last name.
No last name? Excuse.
It would be Joe James.
Is it Joe James?
Yeah, Joe.
This kind of sounds like toe jam.
Joker.
No.
Why?
You guys are being recorded right now, just
Yeah,
remember
I
that.
know.
Okay.
Okay,
Individual,
this is what is your date of birth, Mr. James?
July 4th, 1776.
Amazing. You're really good at that constitution. Are you a U.S. citizen?
Yes, I am.
Are you male or female?
It's your choice.
Male, okay.
Now, you do know that people were not US citizens on July 4th.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Oh, okay. We're
Oh,
skipping
okay.
over that historical fact.
Slowly puts 1979. I put 1979, not 1776.
Oh, no.
Sorry about
That's
that.
fine.
No, 1976.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
we'll go with that. And what county do you live in?
You can say the normal one is Maricopa, it's fine.
Alright,
Greenlee.
and what is your address? Is this mailing address?
You know where they're living, unless they prefer to have a mailing address. Some people prefer to have PO boxes on their documents.
P.O. Box
P.O. Box
906,
906.
37,
Arizona.
Arizona,
85. And what is your email address?
Jose,
Is that Jose?
Josie,
Jose. Jose.
at
At.
Jose.com.
Amazing. What's your phone number?
997, 9977.
Wow,
Very nice.
that's nice.
Now, there is one thing that I saw that you kind of skipped over there, and you didn't read the important notice to him.
No, I didn't.
So just as an FYI, you obviously would start the form by reading the important notice. That's okay, I'm not gonna have you do it now because they were limiting it to 5 minutes, but that's okay.
Why does he sound like wind? This side?
Yep.
Alright,
So you're gonna ask the questions, but again, his answer for all of them except for the medical power of attorney will be no. So ask the question, do you want a financial power of
would
attorney?
you like a financial power of attorney?
No.
That's
Right?
Yep,
So
that's
we're
correct.
not
So you're
gonna
gonna,
do
no, yeah, we're not doing financial today.
that. Would you like a durable healthcare power of attorney?
Yes.
And do you have a DNR in place?
No.
And do you want to be buried or cremated? So you don't know yet? If someone didn't know, would you just put like pending?
Yeah, and you're gonna always put your pending over to the right, because that way it's easy to find it. You'll always put it way over to the right, that you're still waiting on that data. Okay, but he decided on cremation, so you don't need a pending for that. And P just stands for pending, that's what it stands
Yeah, I
for.
know.
Okay,
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Would you like a scan of a HIPAA waiver? That's what they recommend.
sure.
Would you like a durable mental health care power of attorney?
No.
And he already didn't follow instructions.
I know,
Because we were supposed to be no's for everything except for the medical power of attorney. But that's okay, Jose,
Okay.
we'll let you slide today.
Okay. Thank you.
What is the advanced directory registry? I don't remember what that is.
That is the form that allows people to send in their documents to the registry so that they can
Oh.
scan them and then send you the card for your wallet.
Yes.
Yeah, very good question.
You do.
No, these are all
These are all
no's.
no's.
We're not prepping any of those forms today.
Would you like a living will?
Nope.
No. Okay. Final disposition?
No.
Oh, okay. No. Alright.
New.
Is there burial or cremation in place yet?
Nope.
Do you want to be
Nope.
last one tested? Just let me ask the question.
Okay,
Would you like
does
to
your
try?
customer customer service skills, because some people are gonna be like that.
Yeah?
Yeah, some people will be like, no, I told you, I just wanted a financial power of attorney. I hear you, I understand that. Just for procedures, one of the procedures we have is just to make sure we're asking you all the questions. So let me just make sure I go through them, just to make sure.
Would
Okay.
you like K trust?
No,
Do you have a current ID to prove your identity for notarization?
see,
Okay. And we need a witness for this one.
We need a witness or a notary, and we're gonna do a notary because that's what we do here at our firm. We just do notarization. If it's a choice between the two, we just always have a person notarize. So you can skip that one, you can just put an NA.
Alright, and are you able to pick up the original documents? And if not, we can mail them to you.
no,
So you want mail?
And to which address? Always ask. Do you want me to mail it to your PO box? Or do you have a different address you want them to be mailed to? Because remember, these are original documents, and if they get lost, then somebody might not be happy about their documents getting lost. So do you want me to mail those to your PO box, or do you have a different address you want them to be mailed to? So that's a question for you. Go ahead and ask.
Yeah. Do you want them to be mailed to your PO box, or do you have another address?
Yep, very good. All right, George. I'm sorry, Marilyn, go ahead and finish.
Yeah.
I apologize, I
Yeah,
skipped, yeah, you do. Let's skip to page 6.
Okay. So this is some information I need to collect about who are the people you want to manage your medical care on your medical healthcare power of attorney. So I just need some information about them to fill it out. So, what is the first person you would like to name in your healthcare power?
Maria James,
Maria, how do you spell Maria?
M-A-R-I-A,
Okay. And James, same as your last name?
correct.
And what is the relationship to you?
Parole officer.
Alright. Wait. Alright.
It's okay.
And what is her address?
P.O. Box 100,
City
Phoenix,
and zip code.
8520.
That does not match up with Phoenix, but I will use and what is her phone number?
800,
Okay.
8675, 3099.
That's too many numbers.
So 867,
867.
so just confirm, 867,
867.
what?
What?
309.
309. So that's 800-867-3099.
I think so. Let me see. Oh, I got Mr. Number. There we go.
5309. So it's 800-867-5309.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. And what is her email address?
It is Maria at
Mosaic.com.
Maria.
S-O. I'm sorry, P.O. I'm sorry, that's right.
Oh, Pio. Okay.
P-O-P-H-X .G-O-V.
Alright.
Okay.
And would you like to name a second person on your mental health care conversation?
And first,
Don't
just
have
for,
it.
just
Just
to
for
save
today,
time, yeah,
yeah.
just to save time, I think that we should keep it simple, yeah. Perfect, all right.
Alright, so it's gonna be with the
So it
state
should be
entity.
NA. Yeah, because he's not naming co-agents and
Right.
he doesn't have multiple agents, so you don't really need to ask those questions.
Right.
Very good, very good. So now go on to autopsy.
Alright, so would you,
Yes.
can I ask a question? Would you like an autopsy?
Yes.
Yes. And are you planning on donating your organs?
No.
No.
So then you can scratch through the rest. Perfect. Very nice. Okay, let's switch roles, and then George, if you can do the same thing, or Jose, you can do the same things for,
Okay.
I did it again.
Stop
Sorry.
it.
Sorry.
Okay, so,
Okay.
Bill Aragon-Montgomery prepares legal documents
Okay.
for firms.
Yeah, so let's presume you read the whole thing, just again, for sake of time.
Yeah.
Jose,
Okay,
seriously.
got it.
Thank
Hey,
you.
what's your name?
Hey, what's your name?
My name is,
Oh lordy.
You
Now the
know your
roles are
name? Are you
reversed.
competent?
who knows, so I'm getting this stuff.
If you're competent to sign these documents.
My name is Jeffrey Starr.
How do you spell that?
Jeffrey. And Starr is Starr.
Do you have a middle initial?
Keep it simple.
H.
Okay. And do you have any aliases?
Jeff. Jeff. Starr. Starr.
Very nice.
Okay.
And I'm an
Okay. You're an individual?
a single.
Are you married?
No.
Okay. What's your date of birth, Jeff?
My date of birth is May 7th, 2028.
20 what?
28.
Okay.
Future.
Are you a U.S. citizen?
Yes.
And where were you born?
Where was I born? Was he a good citizen?
That's actually not a question on the application, so let's not
Okay.
Why?
make things up as we
Are you
go.
considered a male or female?
Male. Let's go with male.
And what county do you live in?
I live in Maricopa.
Okay.
Okay.
What is your address?
It is Moon, Moon, Kingdom, Kingdom, Lane.
Number?
City?
Oh,
Do you have a
yeah,
number to your address?
Dad didn't
There's just one, just use some of the whole lane.
the whole lane.
Do you wanna pick a number?
She has her own private drive. Yeah.
108. The city is Mesa, Arizona. 85222.
Okay. Your email address? Do you have an email address?
No, I don't.
Okay. Phone?
My phone number is 602 222 2229.
All right.
Right.
So now that we have that underway, I'll need to ask you.
No, you go back to page 4. You skipped.
Oh, I skipped it? Wait,
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Go back to page 4.
So let's see what else we want to get down here. Anything, do you want a durable financial power of attorney today?
No.
Would you like a durable healthcare power of attorney?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. You currently have a DNR in place?
No.
Do you know what that is?
No.
Okay.
Just kidding. Yes, I do.
Have you ever made a decision on whether you'd like to be buried or cremated?
I want to be buried.
All right. Okay. Today, would you like a standalone HIPAA waiver?
No.
What about a durable mental health care power of attorney?
No.
Would you like us to prepare some advance directive? Oh, no. What is that? A living will. Would you like us to prepare a living will for you today?
No.
What about a document that we call a final disposition in instruction.
Okay, so I'm gonna stop you right there because you did skip over a question, and so our job is to make sure that we ask every question. So there's an advanced directive registry form, it's just a form that we would print for the customer to allow them to be able to register their documents with the Secretary of State. Because this is a medical power of attorney and that's one of the documents that is allowed to be recorded there, I would still ask that question.
Of course,
Okay, so go ahead and go back and ask that question.
would you like to register your power of attorney with the Secretary of State?
No.
Thank you.
Would you like final disposition instructions prepared?
No.
Do you have a burial cremation plan that you've already put in place?
No.
Would you like us to prepare a last will and testament?
No.
What about a trust?
No.
So again, on that section there, George, as you're going through it, make sure anything that's not applicable, you put some NAs or slash marks, exactly. Thank you.
And
Again, we don't leave any space unmarked,
do you
right?
have a current ID that's not expired?
Yes.
Okay.
And again, since this document needs a notary or a witness, and our procedures are to just do notarization, we would not necessarily have to ask the witness question on this section. Just put an NA on there.
So after your document is prepared, would you be able to come pick it up, or would you like it mailed out to you?
I wanna pick it up.
Okay, so I'd like to ask some information on who you would like to list as the person you would want to manage your medical care or make this medical decisions for you.
Okay.
Who would you trust to do that?
Billy Bob Joe.
How do you spell that?
B-I-L-L-Y. Bob. B-O-B.
Capital B?
Yeah, separated. It's Billy Bob.
Last name Joe.
Last name Joe. J-O.
Okay. And relationship to you?
My best buddy.
My best buddy.
Okay. And do you know Billy Bob Joe's address?
Yes, I do. He lives on Canyon Way Lane.
Okay.
135 Canyon Way Lane. Canyon Way is 2 words. Separate words.
C-A...
N-Y-O-N space W-A-Y Lane.
What city is that?
That is
Fetch Junction.
Patcha Junction, yeah. I was gonna say that. 850
01.
It's what usually
And what's Billy Bob's phone number?
it is 1107.
What area code?
The area code is 480.
Nice.
Haha!
And does Billy Bob have an email address?
No.
Okay. Is there anyone else you would like to have on your document?
No.
You could choose a co-agent if you want. What if something happened to Billy Bob? Who would be the person that would make your medical decisions for you?
God. Those are very good questions. I love the customer service
Yes.
skills that he's
He's
showing
got great
there.
customer service.
Yes. He's kind of taking it to that next level for you. Is that something that you want to do today? You want to add another person?
No.
Okay.
Okay, so... All right. Very good. this document, do you know, first of all, let me ask you, do you know what an autopsy is?
Yes.
Okay, well, in this document, you have a way to express your feeling about that, whether you would like to have an autopsy, or no, you would not like to want to have one, or you can let Billy Bob decide at maybe a more appropriate time whether you would like to have an autopsy done to determine how you would have it. So it's
Let my agent decide.
And also in this document, we can declare whether you want to be an organ donor. Are you currently an organ donor?
Yes.
Did you decide that you wanted to donate any needed organ or part?
Yes.
Or only specific parts. So there you would want to ask that as an either or question because the choices on our forms are either or. So any needed organ or parts or specific parts. Do you have an option? Do you have a choice there? Any needed?
And you need.
Any needed, okay.
Did you choose to do that for any authorized purpose or just for transplant and therapeutic purposes only?
Just for transplant purposes.
When you signed up to be an organ donor, did you name a particular company or institution that
No.
was to receive those?
Very good. All right, so you guys have collected the data. What you are now going to do is you're going to take that data independently and you're going to now put it on the real form, okay? And in your packet, there is a job sheet. So if you get stuck, you're not sure what it's referencing on this particular document in comparison to the form that we've collected the data on, you now have a reference sheet to be able to figure out what needs to be put where, okay? So that's the goal here, is take the data from the form and put it into its corresponding fields on the actual form. Alrighty? So it'll take a few minutes and do that. Let's do it as quickly as we can. Let's try to get that done in about 5 minutes. We haven't really been sticking with our 5 minutes, but let's try. Let's go for it. So our class can end on time today. And of course, if you have any questions, the first thing I would like you to do is check your job sheet to see if the answer is there. If it's not there, you can check with your partner or you can check with me.
Are you calling my customer?
What?
Hello, Jeff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was working on your documents and I noticed, I think I have your date of birth wrong. I have 05/07/2028. And
Yeah.
we haven't reached there yet, so you're not born. So
Yeah.
did I put the wrong, is it 28? Is it 20, what is it?
Or in the future.
Is it 2000? No,
Is it
can't be.
2008?
No, can't be, since you wouldn't be
Can't
18.
Right.
No.
Is it 1928?
Dad did 1776. I went in the future.
I know, but do you see how I would do that if
Yeah.
I got to this point?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we want to be reasonable, right? You haven't been born yet, so could you be doing documents you couldn't? So is that supposed to be
I
1928?
think it's
Or is it supposed to be 1982?
19.
1928.
1928.
Okay.
Very good.
All right, very good. Thank you, Jeff.
That's very good. See if you're able to do it without too much difficulty. I just realized on my job sheet I have one little area that doesn't match. I tell you, even as a teacher, I still make boo-boos.
Wait.
It's front and back, so there's stuff in the back there. Oh, no, it's recycled paper, that's right. Okay, thank you. Just making sure we're not skipping anything.
Okay,
Well, you have to, no, you have to check these.
that happens when you sign it.
Yeah, I know.
Actually, you can check the boxes. It's
You
okay to
need
check.
to
You can check or you can initial. But since those decisions have already been made, you can go ahead and just check those boxes. Or put an X or a check mark. So what might we do in that section, Mary Lou? He's chosen not to be an organ donor,
Yeah.
right? So if this is all not applicable, what might you do here?
NA?
Yeah, I would put NAs in there.
Just all of them?
I would probably just put a big NA over that whole section. Yeah, there you go. Yep. Perfect. Because what we don't want to do is leave room for interpretation, right? Did he just skip that? Did he make a decision? Did he not make a decision? What was going on there? Okay?
Oh, I don't know if it wants to be, oh, wait,
Later on, yep, autopsy and stuff, yeah, very good.
So we take it and take
have the answer from cremation.
Yeah, because he said he had not put one in place yet.
Yeah.
Okay. So what is that question there?
Find out the dirt provided be cremated with my ashes to be like,
I would just put either not applicable, or that might be one where I would leave blank until you had the signing. Yeah, you wouldn't actually mark that on this because this is the real form, but you would probably address it and at the signing, if he wanted to fill out that,
Right.
you could go ahead and encourage him to fill it out at that time, or if he said nothing, then you could put NA in there, just so that everybody knows that you didn't just miss it, you addressed it with him, okay? And then number 8 down there is about a living will. He's not doing a living will with us, but one thing you might want to do is leave it blank, because if he comes in, you could say, you know, you didn't ask us to do a living will for you, but do you have a living will already in place? And if he does, then you can have him mark the appropriate space there. Okay?
We didn't do everything.
Nope.
Said no.
But as I was just mentioning to Mim, in this section here, you might want to leave that one blank, just because they might already have a living will in place. And so at the signing, you can have them verify it there, and if they do not have one, then of course check the appropriate box. Okay?
We didn't have
Nope.
no,
no, but they probably would want to initial here, because if you read that, it says, I intend for my agent to be treated as I would with respect to my rights regarding the use and disclosure of my individually identifiable health information, which is covered under the HIPAA statute. So they would probably initial here, because most people want their power of attorney to be able to access their information if they're not capable of doing it themselves. What we ask is, do they want a specific, no, they have to initial, George.
I know, well, all these they have to initial.
No, they don't. The form instructions say check or initial, except where it specifically says you have to initial. So you wouldn't necessarily check that box, you would have them initial there. Okay?
He initialed for me?
Yeah, so, but on our form, what we asked was, do you want a separate
Wrong
HIPAA?
initial.
You want a separate HIPAA, he initialed his own
You
initial.
should do this. That doesn't work.
That's okay, all right?
I'm silly. Yeah, the rest of it's just signing up.
So what are you looking for there? Oh, you're looking for a page. Okay, all right, and so this would be the next section that you would have them sign. They're gonna sign and date there, and then the notary would notarize.
Okay.
Okay, all right, so to finish up our class today, obviously we're not actually completing real forms today since we used mock data, but you guys already have your documents in place, so it's okay anyway. What I would like you to do is you do have a homework assignment for purposes of our class, wink wink, you have a homework assignment, and that is your assessment. So one of our precursors to this class was I had you to ask 10 people that you know if they knew what legal documents were. I had you do all of that homework in advance. Now what I would like you to do is I need you to write a letter or an email to somebody in that group of people, specifically probably somebody who doesn't have any background knowledge, doesn't know what legal documents are or why they would want them. So you are going to be, the role of the writer is you as a friend or family member who wants to share your knowledge. The audience is that adult family or friend. You're going to do an email or a letter. The topic is going to be legal documents, a brief explanation of each document and the benefit of completing documents. And then your verb, the focus is you're describing and explaining what documents are and why they're valuable to that person. This here is a checklist of how I want your email or letter to be formatted to help you to create a very positive image and to convey that information. I want you to use this checklist as a guide to know all of the steps that are necessary in your email or your letter, and then on the back of the page is where you're going to draft that letter, okay, your final project. So if you want to draft one outside of your form and then fix it to match the requirements on the actual packet, you're going to turn this packet in tomorrow when you come back to school, okay? And then the final thing for today is back on your first page is your closure, the most important thing I learned today. So what you're going to want to do is take a moment to reflect on today's learning. In the space below, I want you to write down the MIT or the most important thing you feel you learned today. Go ahead and write that out. If you prefer to draw a picture, that's fine. Just some sort of a phrase or explanation to tell me, what did you learn today? What was the most important thing that you learned today? And with that, our class will be finished. Remember to take your homework home, finish your assignment, return it tomorrow. I will grade your work, and we'll finish up the class. Any other questions for me today before we leave?
I don't think so.
No? You good, George? You have any other questions for me today?
Nope, I'm breaking my statement.
Very nice. All right.